In comic books and books this week, we have the novelized sequel to one of the best Batman movies ever made. A new Riddler book illustrates the reasons why I'm not currently reading the Batman franchise. And Multiversus gets a comic book tie-in, but that's not the first time that's happened. It's just a new one, and we're going to talk about that in a bit more. Hello, nerds, and welcome to this week's episode of the news as it pertains to comic books and books. No discussion of current storylines, story arcs, or any of those kind of details is going to happen here per se. I am, after all, a one-man organization and can't read every book that comes out and report on it and any of the news therein. But we can talk about new announcements and major changes as they pertain to any of the publishers that we follow, or just generally nerdy literary information in that sense. So let's get into all of that, shall we? And also, if you dig what's going on here, there is a much more up-to-date and possibly relevant, because it takes a second to get these sections posted up, so probably much more up-to-date version of the news in long form I like to call The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, which you can find linked in the description as well as at the end of this video. That show covers many more points of interest in the nerd community, in the pop culture community at large, and so definitely go check that out. Now let's get into all of those literary notes, shall we? All right, no follow-ups or corrections for comics. We do, though, actually have a trailer to talk about. It is for the new Storm book that we've been talking about. Issue 1 got a trailer. I mean, the book, like I said, we've talked about previously, is written by, I'm not going to be able to pronounce these people's names properly, and I apologize in advance, Murewa Iowadl and Lucas Vernick, maybe? Vernick, something. He is the artist, she is the writer, and it looks good. I'm really digging this art. We're going to get into why it's difficult for me to pick up books here in just a second, but by and large, this looks like it's doing justice to the main character, and that's kind of really all you want out of a character-specific book, right? Is it just has to do justice. So really looks like Storm is getting what she deserves, and that's all you can really ask for. So go check out the trailer. It's absolutely interesting, if nothing else. Then our next piece, we're moving into regular ass news. Sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself. Regular ass news. Our first piece for regular news is Batman Resurrection is the name of the book. This is not a comic book. This is an actual novel. This is a novelization of a sequel to the Batman '89 movie. This is not the sequel that we got. It is not Batman Returns. This is Batman Resurrection. It seems to very potentially take place between the movies if you really want to keep the headcanon going. But really what's happening is this is an immediate sequel to Batman '89. So dealing with the death of the Joker, the remnants of the Joker's gang, it sounds like there's going to be a doctor involved with trying to fix the toxin situation, because if you remember, Joker released a Joker toxin which is called Smylex Smylex toxin, it's what they call it in the movie. So there's a doctor involved with trying to cure people of the effects of Smylex toxin, which, going based off of the synopsis that they gave you, the fact that they mentioned the doctor the way they do seems to imply that he's going to be the actual villain of the book. So that's pretty interesting. I'm really interested to see. But like, it's a novelization of the probably one of the most well-regarded eras of Batman in film, right? So absolutely worth a watch, or worth a read just for that. The author of the book is Jon Jackson Miller. There's a link down in the description. I did not catch when it was going on sale. Very well is already on sale, and I just didn't write that down, and I apologize, but let's say it with me, class. I take amazing notes. That's right, I take fantastic notes, and if you have anything else to say about that, leave a comment down in the description. But yeah, Batman Resurrection, if it's not out already, it'll be out soon. Go check it out when it comes out. Our next piece of news for comic books is something that I'm kind of dipping into, and side of this that I don't really, don't generally have the time to, but B, don't really care for, because it's not it's not the way I see news as far as it pertains to comic books. But this one's a little bit different, and I'm being way too vague. So generally speaking, I don't talk about story arcs on the show, because then I would have to keep up with so many really not good books, and just so many books in general that's just not feasible for me to work a full-time job, have my YouTube full-time job, and then also have something resembling a social life, a private life, if you will, on top of all that. Like, I would be constantly working, and it would feel like work, and I don't like to read comic books when it feels like work. So that's why we don't get into specifics of arcs. But we're going to touch on a specific of a new arc, just because of the broader implication here. And it has to do with the new Riddler. This is, where is the name of the arc? I know I put it in here. Is All In. This is the All In arc. It's the Riddler book in the All In arc, which is starting post Absolute Power. And this is a prime example of one of the biggest reasons why it's hard for me to get into the more modern comic book stuff. It's not even a DEI issue. It's not even anything like that. It's just the simple fact of whoever's writing this, which I don't know if I put it in the notes. Maybe I did. I did not. But yeah, whoever's writing this just doesn't understand how the actual world works. So it's hard for them to write something believable in the fictional world. So let me break this down. So Enigma, because of all of the superheroes have been depowered, right? And so therefore a lot of villains have been depowered as well, which leaves a power vacuum. And Enigma, not being somebody with powers necessarily, he's just very smart, much like Batman. Batman did not get depowered because Batman doesn't have powers. The entire Bat family like that, except for maybe, what was it, the Signal Kid that has the light, that can see light. That's technically a power, so whatever. So Nygma did not get depowered. So he's got the room to step up. He creates a new tech company called Nygmatech, which is 7 shades of, what is it, Batman Forever. So he creates Nygmatech, and Nygmatech's primary output from the synopsis is cryptocurrency? What? So in the real world, whole company, well, I mean, I guess technically, like, but it's not like you don't create a major tech company and then your primary output is crypto. You create a cryptocurrency, which is not a major company at all. They can be worth many millions of dollars, sure. There can be a lot of money there, but usually that falls apart. And so very likely that's what's going to happen in this book. That's fine, whatever. But like, that's just the weird disconnect between what a tech company does and what a crypto company does, and how they're trying to make them the same thing just hurts my head on the surface of it. So why would I want to get into the details of that? That's just stupid. That's just dumb. And that is why it's hard for me to read modern comics, is because the self-interjection and then the not fully comprehending the world around them that most comic book writers have anymore is just, and we're gonna move on. let's just get past this before I start to really go in circles. But yeah, so Riddler, I'm not going to be reading it. If you read it, let me know if it's worth it. From there, we have a new book announced from DC, kind of more announced from Warner Brothers, but they own DC, so it's a Multiversus book. Another one, which is not bad. I kind of dig the Multiversus books. I like the Elseworlds kind of elements, and so a Multiversus book is by definition an Elseworlds situation. Not in the traditional sense, but multiverses. Get it? All right, anyway. So the name of the book is Collision Detected. It is going to be a 6-issue mini written by Bryan Q Miller with art from Jon Sommariva, I think is how that last name is spelled. I apologize for butchering that. And it's the superheroes, the DC superheroes have to team up with characters from the Cartoon Network and from Boomerang, which isn't even technically a thing anymore, and just other IPs from Adult Swim, etc., to save the world. I mean, like, that's how this works, right? Book number 2 is currently out, so we're in the middle of the 6-book mini. And I mean, again, just kind of a fun read from what I can tell. I haven't read it yet, but I will pick up the trade once it's done, I'm sure. I don't expect anything great out of it, but it'll be just a real quick popcorn read, right? So if you are so inclined to go check it out, otherwise we'll talk about it later. That's what we got for regular as news. Let's talk about our suggestions for the week. We are in spooky season, and this is actually one that I haven't suggested in the past, though I don't understand fully why. Spawn is their suggestion for the week. The mainline books are over issue number 300. This is the longest running artist-owned book in the history of comic books in general. So that's freaking huge. They did just reissue all of the books in soft cover form. What are they called? The Spawn Origins series. They're re-releasing. It's 25 books per printing. So the volume 1 is the first 25 books, etc., 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 all the way up through the first 300, which happened again about a year and a half ago. I think maybe even possibly more than that at this point. But yeah, that's our suggestions. I mean, Spawn, man. Todd McFarlane. Sure, the story gets a little tedious and thin in spots, but the art is always fantastic. Todd McFarlane is one of the standard bearers for good art in the industry for a reason. Maybe not one of the standard bearers for good writing, but you know, whatever. It's still worth a read, and that is your suggestion for the week. Go check out Spawn, any of the mainline books, but specifically I'm saying you should pick up the trades for the reissues because it's just really, really cool. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.